Support for this podcast comes from St. Alphonsus Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Clinics, with physicians, physical therapists, and trainers who treat sports and performance-related injuries, with locations across the valley. More information on services and locations at stalphonsus.org/stayactive.
In collaboration with Boise State Public Radio, the Community Library presents a new podcast, Sheep Stories. I'm host Vance Cunningham. Join me as we listen through the archives of the Trailing of the Sheep Festival to learn about the Scottish, Basque, and Peruvian immigrants foundational to the sheep herding industry over the past century. Hear their stories of traveling to Idaho and learning the language of the sheep. Find Sheep Stories wherever you get your podcasts and at boisestatepublicradio.org.
From Boise State Public Radio, this is The Connector. It's Idaho's Daily News. Good morning. I'm George Prentice. We have some really interesting numbers to share with you. Take a guess. How many unsuccessful attempts each semester do you think there are of Boise State students trying to access Tik Tok? Of course they can't. That's why they're unsuccessful. Take a guess how many there would be each semester. We've got numbers from the Labor Department. We've got new job numbers. And we also have some data on this year's wildfire season. It is Monday, the 22nd of September, and here we go. We've got new job numbers for Idaho. The state's labor force decreased by just a bit, while the labor force participation rate, that's the percent of people that are employed or are actively looking for a job, that has also decreased. As a result, the overall unemployment rate in Idaho stayed at 3.7%. In August, we saw job losses in the natural resources, federal government, arts and entertainment, and construction industries. But we saw job gains in the accommodation and food service, private education, and retail job sectors. A potential deal for U.S. ownership of Tik Tok remains possible, but after a phone call Friday between President Trump and Chinese President Xi, the White House says there is more work to do. As Troy Oppie reports, Idaho says it will follow the federal government's lead for what comes next for Tik Tok.
Governor Brad Little banned Tik Tok, the short-form video social media app, in December 2022. It's not allowed on state-owned equipment and blocked on state-controlled internet networks.
The help desk actually gets several tickets during the first couple weeks, wondering why it's blocked.
That's Boise State University Chief Information Security Officer Brandon Bolin. Governor Little cited security threats and Chinese control as reasons for the ban. Bolin says attempts to access Tik Tok spike on campus the first few weeks of each semester.
About 50,000 direct attempts.
It's new students not realizing the site is a no-go, and their parents who might be logged in to the campus guest network. Attempts to access Tik Tok also spike during events like football games.
Compared to what we see blocking things like torrenting or other things, where we will sometimes block hundreds of thousands a day.
Most of those are simply sites with malicious code. Torrenting is a method of downloading movies and music illegally. The firewall doesn't act as the morality police, Bolin says. As for Idaho's ban on Tik Tok, Governor Little's office didn't answer specific questions, but wrote by email that the governor would continue to work with the White House on the best ways to protect the security of Idahoans and the nation. Troy Oppie, Boise State Public Radio News.
Fire Watch, the 2025 Idaho wildfire season is beginning to wind down.
For this year, we had a total of 343 fires. And you compare that to the 20-year average, where we have roughly 271 fires.
Briefing the governor and other state lawmakers last week, this is Department of Lands Director Dustin Miller, and he also provided a glimpse at the number of fires on both public and private land this year.
171,000 acres have burned across the state this fire season.
And confirming new research, an increasing number of fires this year were triggered by lightning. Caleb Bradle reports.
The study finds that in the coming decades, nearly the entire West will see more days when lightning could spark wildfires. Northern Nevada, Idaho, and Montana could see the biggest increases, up to 12 extra lightning days each summer. Dmitry Kalashnikov is a researcher at the University of California, Merced, and the study's lead author.
climate change is going to increase the risk of lightning-caused fires. If we make the appropriate policy and sort of funding decisions to keep up with the risk, maybe it won't be so bad.
He adds that lightning is already responsible for more than 2/3 of the area burned by wildfires in the West. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Caleb Radel.
And that is today's episode of The Connector. I'm George Prentice. What do you say we meet back here on Tuesday? You can stay with the news 24/7 on our website, boisestatepublicradio.org, and tell your friends, family, and neighbors about The Connector and how they can access it wherever they find their favorite podcasts. For now, I'm George Prentice. To you, thanks for listening.